Alright guys, so today we're going to be talking about Diablo 4, and while this isn't going to be a review of Diablo 4, because I don't feel I have enough knowledge of the previous games, or even this game, to really dive deep into it, I just want to give you my thoughts on where I am in the game and what I think of it overall, especially to those of you who have never played this type of game, or any Diablo game before. So I'm going to start out by saying I'm roughly about 21 hours into the game at level 37. I started out the game originally as a barbarian, made it to like mid-20s, and then ended up switching over to a sorcerer. Now I'll get into the classes here in a second, but if you don't know what Diablo is, right, because I don't typically talk about these types of games, it's very different than what I typically play, right? It almost looks like, at first glance, if you've never seen anything like this, it looks like League of Legends. That's how I would describe it to somebody who has never seen the game, never heard of this type of game, don't know what it is. That's what it looks like visually from a first glance. But it's not at all. It's much more fun as someone who's never played this type of game before. You just run around, and it's kind of like a beat 'em up, except a bit more complicated. Imagine, again, trying to keep it to my audience. Imagine a Destiny, right? But in this top-down view, and set in kind of a heaven and hell type lore instead of your futuristic magical space powers. That's essentially what it is, right? You run around, you do dungeons and bosses, you get loot, level up your loot, enchant your loot if you will. You want to throw a little bit of Minecraft terminology up in there, and then fight more difficult enemies. It's essentially what it boils down to, right? So let me go ahead and break down into the details of that. But if you've never heard of this type of game or this franchise at all, that's essentially what the core gameplay boils down to. So let me go ahead and break down the individual classes, how they all play a bit differently, and what you'll be spending most of your time doing. So like I said, there's a couple of classes to choose between, and within those classes you have subclasses to choose between different abilities and upgrades. This big ass complicated skill tree with both what I like to call active and passive abilities, things that are literally just stat increases from X% to Y% damage, or stun, or some type of elemental damage, to actual new abilities with animations. I've gone over this type of stuff before, right? You have your passive and active skills, but from there it breaks down into each individual class. You have the Barbarian, which, as you can assume, is a big heavy melee character, the Necromancer, which can summon the dead, your Sorcerer, which uses magic, the Rogue, which uses a lot of quick attacks, poison bows, and then finally the Druid. And so each one of these does something unique and different, and within those skill trees you have something unique and different to choose from. Typically within a couple of levels you hit a new node. At each node you get a choice of abilities to choose between to slot into your hotbar, right? Then from there you can upgrade those abilities to, like I said, active and passive upgrades, something like doing more damage, or increasing the ability to a higher tier, something like adding an extra head to your Hydra attack, stuff like that, right? Bouncing your lightning off of more enemies, just upgrades like that, until eventually you get to the end of this tier system, this skill tree, and when you get to the end, you have kind of an overarching broad ability, which is all of these abilities under subclass 1 get a boost, all of these abilities under subclass 2 get a boost, all of these abilities under subclass 3 get a boost. And this is where you're essentially not forced, but encouraged, I'll say, to main one of those subclasses, right? You can go through and actually filter through the abilities and say, okay, I want crowd control abilities, or I want damage abilities, or speed abilities, and go through and make your class broken down ability by ability, upgrade by upgrade, passive and active, to make all of your moves and your build as precise as you want it to be for what you're trying to go for. And that's essentially boiled down to 50 to 60% of the gameplay. Going through and reslotting those abilities, you can go through and just refund them all for a relatively low amount of gold. Again, I'm only 20 hours in, but it's something like 3 to 5,000 gold, depending on, again, what level you are, to reslot all of your abilities, and I have somewhere in the 3 to 400,000 range, so it's not expensive relatively. But aside from that, your other 40% of gameplay, let's say, you have your story missions with cutscenes and all of that stuff. And while if that's your thing, this world isn't, my cup of tea per se. It's not exactly what I'm interested in. I prefer that Destiny space type of shit. But if this is what you're into, the story is there. It's not bad. There's a lot of big words. You don't have to play the previous ones to understand what's happening, but I'm sure it helps for lore reasons. But aside from that, like I said, very much like a Destiny. You're running around beating up enemies, doing dungeons, side quests, and main missions, and favors to get higher gear with different aspects and elemental attacks, and this one's a little bit better than that one, and when you put this enchantment on that one, you can get this gear a little bit better than that one, and then you can go through and customize how you look, and do all types of things. Now, here's where my dilemma comes with this game, right? Again, I'm only 20 hours in, I'm Act 1 of 6, I believe. I'm not very far. But a lot of people that I've talked to that have played previous games and really like this game, the videos that I've watched, they all talk about going through and, oh, well, this is your first character, and your next character, you can do this. The game's enjoyable, right? I thought I would get quickly bored of the beat-em-up, run-through waves of enemies type style, but I haven't at the point that I'm at so far. Again, only Act 1 of 6 through the game, but I cannot see myself playing through this entire thing again on another character, ever, right? I think it's fun, it's enjoyable. Is it worth $70? Again, I haven't gotten far enough to know, but I don't ever see myself going through and playing as each character throughout the entire game. But that's just me, this isn't my type of game. If this is what you're into, I'm sure you would love that. But is it fun enough to get on with some friends and play through one character to completion? Again, to the level that I'm at, I think it is. Now, I don't want to make a fully fleshed out, incredibly long video, but for the people who are new to this type of game, I do want to get into the stuff that's a little bit more complicated, just to reassure you that you can play this game even if you're a complete idiot like me. So this is going to piss off a lot of those people that like hardcore play this game and play on the highest difficulties where your character dies and all of that stuff, but that's not who this video is for, right? They're watching the people that actually know what they're talking about. So, if you're a complete idiot, and you want to just go in and like enjoy your playthrough and you don't have to watch a YouTube video on the best build and what all the hell these names and numbers mean, you can totally do that, right? Like I said, I'm as far as I am, and for the most part, up until recently, I've just been going through the game and just equipping the thing with the highest number. I don't read any of the abilities, I don't read the upgrades, I don't read all of these aspects and elemental effects. I literally just look at the number, which number is the highest, and equip that one. That's all I've been doing, and I've only struggled on one boss fight so far. So, again, I'm not that far into the game, but to the point that I'm at, if you just want something to where you don't have to, have a master's degree in trigonometry to play, you can totally do that. Now, I'm not saying that as you get further on, you're not going to need to do that. I'm sure you will, but when you're at that point, you'll understand the base mechanics a bit more, and you'll be able to dive into that, because there is complicated stuff, right? You have your loot, which has individual upgrades, and then individual relics and enchantments you can equip to those pieces of loot, as well as aspects that you have to find to equip to those pieces of loot. It's very complicated. But again, like Destiny, you can just look at the thing with the highest number and equip that one, and for 98% of the content of the game, you'll be just fine. Again, I didn't want to make a full review and make like a 40-minute video on this because I haven't played a lot of the game, and this isn't my type of game. No matter if this is the greatest game ever made, I was never going to give this above like a 7. I mean, it's fun, but I don't last, even with friends, longer than an hour and a half to 2 hours playing this in one sitting. So that's just my opinion. It's something that if you've never played this type of game before, I would definitely, 1, make sure you have a friend to play it with, and 2, get it on sale, right? I don't think at $70, if you've never played this type of game before, this isn't your typical type of game, it's really something you want to dive into head first. Now, if you have a friend who has absolutely no idea what they're doing, just like I did, it's still just as fun. You don't need somebody who has like a master class or a degree in Diablo. You'll be just fine. You'll be able to figure it out together for the most part. But that's just my thoughts on the game. Like I said, it's pretty good. I enjoy it. But you let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you've never played it before, if you've played all of them, let me know what you think regardless, and I'll see you guys on the next one.